A folding chair has been brought in for repair. Fabric replacement and foam replacement are required. It is already over 10 years old, which means it has been around for a decade. Completely repaint the armrests and other lacquered parts of this furniture, ensuring a smooth and even finish. We start by carefully and meticulously disassembling each component, taking care to label and organize all parts for easy reassembly later. A 13mm wrench, a flat screwdriver, and an impact driver with a 13mm attachment. To begin with, firstly, we need to carefully and gently loosen the nuts, and then proceed to remove the folding part. Carefully and slowly unscrew the back panel. Be careful not to lose the small nuts, bolts, and screws from this specific location. From here, carefully set each of these items aside in a separate location, ensuring they are not mixed with other materials or items to maintain organization and prevent any potential confusion. Carefully remove the backrest and gently unscrew the locks completely with caution, ensuring all screws are thoroughly removed. Here. Sometimes some nuts are difficult to unscrew. We hold them with pliers. Then we will need to slightly adjust the thread. We unscrewed all the nuts and washers. This is done very carefully. We collect them and store them separately. We remove the armrests. And all the other fasteners that are on this chair. Again, we very carefully remove each and every one of the small washers, all the tiny screws, and put them in a secure and separate box so they don't get lost, ensuring they absolutely do not get lost.
We remove the internal screws if they hold onto it. Sometimes they are very tightly stuck, so this one comes off easily. This one too. Therefore, we also remove the internal nuts in this case. You can also screw them back in right away and then set them aside separately. We also remove all fasteners from the folding parts, unscrewing them with a screwdriver and setting them aside separately. We also completely and thoroughly remove all other fasteners, each of them, and store them separately, ensuring they are kept in an organized manner. After removing the fasteners, we strip the fabric. I usually use pliers for this. If the fabric is strong and durable, you can just pull on it gently, and the staples will come out easily without much effort. You can clearly see this is dust and debris that has accumulated over time. This is foam. The foam is already falling apart and breaking down, so it clearly needs to be replaced, as you can see. This fabric is not going back anywhere, so there's no need to be sorry for it. Please be extremely careful. The staples are sharp. Try not to poke your fingers unnecessarily. It's absolutely not needed by anyone at all. After pulling them out, we go over and check the staples that are sticking out, especially the broken short ones. We carefully check them and remove all or tap them down with a hammer. Everything is done meticulously and with great attention to detail. We review it with our fingers. Or you can use an old knife like this. If there is a stub left from a broken staple, we will feel it with the knife and pull it out with pliers. Or we can tap it out with a hammer. Here is our foam and lip. The folding part of the seat is disassembled in exactly the same way. We remove the fastener, unscrew the legs, strip the fabric, and put all small parts, fasteners, nuts, and washers into a separate box right away to avoid losing anything. One common problem during disassembly is when the nut won't unscrew. In such furniture, the bolt is located with the head inside. It is just in the wood, and doesn't hold on to anything. Therefore, when you turn it, even if you spray special liquids, if there is mechanical damage to the thread, the nut won't unscrew. It needs to be clamped somehow. Sometimes it's enough to just jam the leg like this, and then turn the nut, but sometimes it still spins. Then you need to mechanically grip it with something. Pliers don't fit well enough. Then this kind of tool, such cutters, can work. We carefully thread them through the nut and gently tighten the thread. With a wrench, we slowly manage to catch the edges of the nut and start unscrewing. In this particular case, we carefully proceed. It worked. We remove the stone in the same way. We pull out the staples to avoid cutting our hands properly. We carefully check if there are any protruding stumps left from the digging. They are extremely sharp and can cut fingers. The foam here is also in very poor condition. It needs to be completely replaced in its entirety, and as a result, We will also eliminate any and all unwanted squeaking noises. Next, after we have disassembled everything, we reinforce the plywood. The plywood is additionally reinforced with screws and nails to prevent squeaking. Next, we look at the frame of these chairs. This is the backrest. The back of the chair, this is where we lean our back. There were straps like these here. Over time, the straps pull and break these side parts. They go inward, slightly. Therefore, we remove the straps. To align them, we tap them. We install additional metal plates here. And we fasten them again, drill a hole, and secure with 100mm nails. We additionally secure with nails to the main frame so that they do not pull inward with the straps. And then we put on the straps, but we will use different straps. After reinforcing the frame, we can basically cut the foam, slice it. How is this done? To start, the foam is usually rolled up. Therefore, it needs to be placed on the table and allowed to rest for at least 1 to 2 hours. After that, we carefully take measurements. This is the backrest, and precisely. The length measurement we have here is, for example, 64 centimeters. We add 5mm for the allowance at the bottom and 3 centimeters at the top, because we have a 3 centimeter foam in front that will press against the thicker foam here. So we have 64 plus 3 there, 5mm here. Don't forget to allow for extra. For the width, we measure the width and add 5mm on each side. Then we cut the width of the foam. Before cutting, we choose a straight edge. Align it with a straight wall, and then measure the required width, cutting along the entire length. After that, we need to check the 90-degree angle from the edge where we will start cutting. If there is no 90-degree angle, we use a square or a straight board to create a 90-degree angle, and then we start measuring the necessary segments and cutting them. We have a separate video on how to cut foam. You can watch it on the channel. Next, we will proceed to work on varnishing the armrests. These armrests are damaged. The varnish is very badly damaged, so it is useless to cover it with varnish on top. The old varnish needs to be removed, preferably down to the base, as much as possible.
I usually remove varnish with this kind of knife called a boot knife. It has a thick, non-flexible, very sharp blade with a slight rounding, with minimal rounding. Like this. If the varnish is not thick like glass, then regular varnish. When it has been sitting for many years, if it needs revarnishing, it is usually very easy to remove with a knife. This is much faster than using any chemicals to remove varnish or even sanding. With sandpaper clogs very quickly, making it inconvenient to work with. Using a knife is definitely, for me, more convenient. Be sure to remove it along the grain, never across, only along the length. And for safety reasons, it is better to move the knife away from yourself, not towards yourself, but away. In just under a minute, this part is almost free of varnish. After removing the varnish, it is not necessary to try to remove all the dark spots, because this tint that was under the varnish often penetrates very deeply in some places, so trying to completely remove it with a knife is pointless. So, based on this, we repaint either in the same color or darker. Lighter is definitely not an option. First, we carefully remove it with a knife, then we take fine sandpaper or a sanding sponge and finish it. This area results in a very smooth surface. Then we stain the wood in the desired color and then cover it with varnish. I work with acrylic stains and acrylic varnishes, and this is how we clean all the armrests. First with a knife, then with fine sandpaper. As for large flat surfaces, it's not necessary to completely tear off the varnish, but it's preferable to remove the top glossy layer, which may be contaminated and on which the stain and varnish will adhere much worse. For this, we very simply take a piece of sandpaper, specifically in this case, approximately 150 grit, to achieve a perfectly flat surface. This is precisely how we carefully sand it down, gently removing the very topmost layer. This results in a matte surface, which is ready for the next coating, varnish, stain before varnishing, and so on. The varnish paint will adhere quite well to various surfaces, effectively and efficiently. After we have thoroughly removed the old varnish and sanded it, we wipe it with a lint-free soft cloth to remove dust and start coating. I first apply a decorative acrylic stain to even out the color, and then I cover it with acrylic varnish. I use acrylics because they are non-toxic, odorless, dry quickly, and are easy to work with using a brush or any other methods. Trying to sand more aggressively to achieve the lightest wood or plywood is unnecessary because the old stain has penetrated much deeper here. If we try to remove it completely, for example, with plywood, we will simply remove the top layer of the plywood and reach the glue, which will no longer absorb the impregnation. Therefore, we remove the varnish and the old impregnation as much as possible. Therefore, when we change the varnish, it is usually covered either in the same color as before or darker. We use a brown impregnation. A very soft brush can also be used with acrylic material, and with very gentle and light movements along the grain, not across, we carefully and thoroughly cover with impregnation. It lays down very easily. Acrylic paints and impregnation varnishes are good because they do not dry too quickly while working, meaning there are at least a few minutes, even 5 to 10 minutes, to correct things if something doesn't turn out very well. At the same time, it does not take too long to dry. After about 1 hour, it no longer feels sticky. After a few hours, a second layer can be applied.
And when you apply the finish, even if you need to rub it in somewhere, you can rub it in more strongly like this if there are any dents or fibers. Then just adjust it with a motion along the fibers, and everything turns out very beautifully. We pay special attention to the corners to avoid little drips. And spread it very evenly and thoroughly well. It packs quite quickly, literally taking a couple of minutes for each armrest. At the very bottom part, to make it easier to coat, we simply and very gently lower it like this, and it hangs down there, and we coat it down there carefully. Or you can gently and carefully hold it from below with your hand, with your fingers like this, in a comfortable manner. After the top part dries, you can coat the bottom part, so as not to dirty your hands now, so it doesn't stick anywhere. In this section, we have the armrest, which is completely covered with a soft and comfortable material, providing excellent support and comfort for your arms while you are seated. Then, when it's carefully laid down, we make precise and deliberate finishing strokes along the entire length to ensure all lines are aligned with the grain. And send it for drying. This armrest has already started to dry a bit, and you can see that despite the dark colour, all the wood grains are very visible. The entire structure of the wood remains visible while having a nice dark colour. Once it is completely dry, we cover it with a colourless acrylic varnish in the same way, 2 times, and sometimes even 3. Drying between layers depends on the instructions. Usually, 4 to 6 hours is enough. A maximum of 8 hours depending on the air temperature and humidity. Now let's deal with the frames of this chair. The frames are in very poor condition. The first problem is that all the springs have reached their limit. Over time, the springs twist and break the beams at the corners that they hold onto. What needs to be done? The frame needs to be completely disassembled, which is a crucial step in the process. Here we will carefully glue everything together, ensuring that each piece is aligned perfectly, adding these sturdy metal brackets, which we will securely attach here. What else can we do to enhance the stability? We will change the screws on the hinges because the old ones are already worn out. Let's start with this part of the frame. And here, we need to check the angle first. Is there a 90-degree angle or not? Here, there is no angle. You can see it. This needs to be removed because of this misalignment. You can see it well here too. Because of this misalignment, when the chair is folded and unfolded at the joints, it tilts to one side or the other. This can cause it to rub against the sides and scratch, for example, the armrests. So we disassemble this part, completely take apart the beams, re-glue them, set the 90-degree angle correctly. Then in this part we remove the dowels, disassemble the frame, repair the corners, and additionally secure them with metal brackets. We will also reinforce them with these metal strips. We will also wrap the corners with metal strips in this way and that to ensure they hold firmly. Let's consider one of the problems with the support legs. These legs are simply bolted on, open, and have a strong and significant load that can cause breakage. Very often, because of this, the leg frequently cracks in this place. Well, here for example, right? Here you can see that there is a crack. How can this be fixed? Well, here is the repaired one. A strip of galvanized metal is taken and is wrapped like this, securing below the hole and preventing it from tearing apart. How is this done? We take galvanized metal. The thickness is approximately 0.5 millimeter. We cut the strip narrower than the leg. If the leg is 25 millimeter, we cut it to 20 millimeter. Next, we cut the necessary length, approximately 2 centimeters below the hole, 2.5 or even 3. We measure. We see that another 5 millimeters will be used for the bend, and we remove about 3 centimeters of excess. We immediately make holes for the nails at the edges with a punch. Approximately about 5 millimeters from the outer edge, one, the second. We bend the sharp edges, these ones, a little, literally 1 to 2 millimeters at the edges, so they can embed into the wood and not scratch anyone's hands, like this. We take nails, about 20-25 millimeters, preferably not too thin, with a thickness of about 1.5 to 2 millimeters. We place a plywood board underneath. The hole is about 2.5 to 3 centimeters lower. The nail is secured very well, and the edges are also securely embedded into the wood for safety. Then we wrap it tightly. The metal is indeed soft enough. The metal should definitely not be springy. After that, we tighten it as much as possible, and use a hammer to make the necessary indentation. How it ultimately turns out to be taut and exactly to size, achieving the desired result in the process. Once more we proceed to drive in with a nail carefully and precisely, and then here we make a hole with a punch for another nail, again as low as possible for the hole. and we'll forget about another year. This is the fastening we got, and in this particular place the leg will absolutely not tear. We continue the frame repair. Here, this frame has a problem related to a squeaking noise issue, and we are addressing it. It is clearly visible. The joint is poorly sealed. Because of this, it squeaks very loudly. What needs to be done? It needs to be completely disassembled and the plywood removed. Disassemble the frame, seal it well, seal the joints with fabric if necessary, and additionally, we will use this metal strip to make a clamp so that it never falls apart. Let's start disassembling. First, we pull out all the nails and disassemble the frame. Carefully and methodically disassemble the object, ensuring that our task is not to break it, but to take it apart piece by piece. Now, let us focus on the frame itself, which is a crucial component. That is, the frame itself is wobbly, but before disassembling, it is essential to check all the corners for any nails or screws. So we carefully review everything thoroughly. After that, we start to gently break it apart with a hammer, using light movements. Now we will disassemble one by one. We check how easily they come out, ensuring nothing is obstructing them to avoid breaking anything further. Something is obstructing it, but it's not clear what. It could be a broken bracket, a nail, or a screw. Therefore, we look for the orientation in which it comes out with the least loss. And either a small nail or possibly even a piece of a broken screw has persisted there. So very, very carefully. Like this. There was an old broken screw here. So if we hit too hard, we will just break all the pins and then won't be able to reassemble. So we disassembled it. Now we are cleaning the old glue a bit. We take a rasp and go over carefully to remove the old seam slightly. We do this on all joints. After the cleaning, we check how easily it fits. If it fits tightly, has no play and doesn't wobble, then we simply apply glue and reassemble it. If there is a lot of play, we cut a thin fabric, place it over the tenons, glue it together, and then reassemble. So, we checked, cleaned the grooves, tenons and ears. We applied glue well. It fits quite tightly. No additional sealing is required. Therefore, we applied glue to one and the other. And we carefully insert it. That's it, we placed it. Thoroughly inspecting each and every corner of the room to ensure that nothing is overlooked or missed during the process of checking. To effectively stop the spread, securely drive in a bracket. This action ensures containment, preventing further dispersion, and maintaining control over the situation. So now we will furthermore secure it with tape and ensure it is firmly in place. We take galvanized tape about 1 to 1.5 centimeter wide and 0.5 thick, and we will wrap the corners like this. We set it to about the middle. Make sure not to hit the fastening holes carefully during the process. Leave a few millimeters from the edge so that the sharp edge of the metal does not reach the fabric under any circumstances. And with nails of 30-40 millimeters, we carefully and precisely drive in the tape, laying it down securely. We bend it not just with our hands, but like this, with a hammer, using a hammer to ensure it is securely fastened to achieve the desired result. In this process, we carefully bent the material by applying a steady force, ensuring it conformed to the desired shape. After achieving the initial bend, we tapped it gently to refine the shape and remove imperfections. Finally, we used hammers to bend it further, employing various techniques to achieve the exact curvature and finish required. And then, to ensure the tape is taut, we made a notch in advance, created a hole with a punch, shift it to the side, drive in the nail that we will hammer, pull it out, and carefully stretch it at an angle as far as possible. We place it and start hammering at an angle of about 30 degrees. This way, it pulls the tape towards itself, resulting in a very tight wrap. This corner is designed with precision and care, ensuring it remains intact and unbreakable under any circumstances. With reinforced materials and expert engineering, it stands as a testament to durability and strength. This corner is a crucial part of the structure, providing stability and reliability. So all four corners are glued and additionally firmly secured with metal strips in each corner. So we check again with a square to ensure the angle is 90 degrees. So the frame is not skewed. After that, we carefully and evenly apply glue to each and every one of the bars. We start by positioning the plywood carefully, making sure it fits perfectly in the designated spot. Once aligned, we nail it securely, ensuring each nail is placed at the right angle and depth for stability. Initially, I thought about removing the old brackets, but after assessing them, I chose to keep them. Instead of discarding, we are reintegrating these brackets by driving them back into their original positions, ensuring they are firmly attached and contribute to the overall structural integrity. And then we must absolutely drive in the nails. We reinforced it a bit once again. We carefully check to see if the frame has shifted from its original position by examining its alignment and ensuring it remains stable. It's definitely fine. We have an angle here. Indeed, there is an angle here. We turn it over and use nails, preferably as long as possible, that fit here. In this case, these are 40mm nails. We take all the plywood. The distance is approximately about 10 centimeters between the nails. There is absolutely no squeaking at all, and in all likelihood, there won't be any in the foreseeable future or in the near future. Over time, the screws on the hinges also gradually straighten themselves out. Of course, you can just tighten them, but if they have loosened once, they are likely to loosen again. In order to ensure optimal performance and stability, it is highly recommended that you completely and thoroughly remove the existing screws and replace them with new ones that have a larger diameter for better support. For example, replace this screw with this one. They have approximately the same thickness, but these have deeper threads, which will hold better. However, they also have a considerably larger head in size, so if you place such screws opposite to each other, the heads will not allow the hinge to open fully and properly. Therefore, it is necessary to enlarge the countersinks. For this, we take a 10 mm drill in order to ensure proper functionality. We start by using a 10 mm drill bit to create countersinks in the material. This involves drilling into the surface to form a conical hole, allowing the screw head to sit flush or below the surface. The purpose of these countersinks is to ensure that the screws are inserted deeply enough to hold the material securely without protruding. This is essential in applications requiring a smooth finish, or where screws do not interfere with other components. Proper countersinking prevents alignment issues and interference, maintaining the assembly's integrity. This technique is vital in fields like woodworking, metalworking, and construction, where precision and durability are key. By using countersinks and correctly sized screws, we achieve a clean, professional finish and a strong, reliable hold. The hinges, which are made of high-quality materials, will not loosen or wear out for a long time, ensuring durability and reliability. Now, we carefully nail the sturdy straps securely to the back, providing additional support and stability. These are special straps that are designed to stretch and adapt to various needs and situations. To begin with, we securely attach them to the strap, ensuring that it is of a medium length. Once this is done, we carefully trim the excess material to achieve the desired length. After trimming, we proceed to pull it out gently to ensure everything is in place. This same process is applied in this situation as well, ensuring consistency and accuracy in our approach. And we continue to install like this. Here is what we get. The foam will rotate here. We also add a piece of foam to the very top on the corner, so that the backrest does not sag here. Next, we begin by taking a piece of dense canvas fabric, which is known for its durability and strength, to use as a protective layer for the seat spring, so that the foam, which is soft and prone to damage, does not get damaged by the spring's pressure. Initially, we carefully attach the fabric to the four corners, ensuring a snug and secure fit. And then we nail around, wrapping not from the top, but under the collar, so that it definitely doesn't tear. Round seat foam can be inserted. We carefully cut the foam with an additional 5 mm allowance on each side, and precisely and accurately. We set it up, check again, then apply glue to the surface, stick it on, and cover it with synthetic padding, and so for all surfaces of the chair.
We try to very carefully and precisely apply glue to the edge so that the foam doesn't go into the middle. We apply a little in the middle to prevent it from slightly shifting. We carefully set it up. We check with our fingers to ensure the allowance is the same everywhere, and then we press it down. That's it, the foam is glued. We cover the foam with synthetic padding. The synthetic padding is quite thick. Why is this done? This is done so that it doesn't get too hot, making it more pleasant to sleep. A layer of synthetic padding is created to ensure there is an air layer between the foam and the fabric. It is not necessary to glue the synthetic padding. We have positioned it, and you can very easily and securely attach it with the ties at the front. Like this. And exactly the same at the back. This is how we attach the synthetic padding and likewise the foam and synthetic padding to all flat surfaces of the chair. So, we have covered our folding parts with foam and synthetic padding. We didn't forget to make the foam. This seat. The foam extends a little forward at the top of the seat. Here we have about 1 centimeter of reserve. Next, we have no more than 5 millimeters of allowance on the sides and back, and we cover all this with synthetic padding to create an air layer, allowing the fabric to slide better when we put it on. What is important to remember when we wrap with synthetic padding is to immediately leave free spaces. This is where the leg mounting bolts will go. And where any screw attachments are, here are the holes from the old screws. Under no circumstances should the synthetic padding cover them, because when we screw in the screws, the synthetic padding will get twisted around the screws, it will tear easily, and we won't be able to tighten the attachments. Therefore, we must cut the synthetic padding in advance, not covering the holes where the screws will be screwed in. Similarly, we prepared the backrest of the chair for upholstery. It is also completely wrapped in synthetic padding. The fabric cover will be easy to put on. The synthetic padding is wrapped and packed into the frame. And here, the side attachment will be secured. Here is the hole for the screws. We also cut the synthetic padding so that we can easily screw in the attachment later. Next, we proceed to work with the fabric. Just one moment. Here we have the second backrest. I haven't put the synthetic padding on it yet. Why? To cut the side wedges, it's more convenient when the synthetic padding is not yet on. We will place this part on the fabric, trace it with foam, which is easier than tracing on the synthetic padding. Then we will put on the synthetic padding to work with the fabric. We clean the table. In case you find yourself without a distinct and dedicated clean and organized area or space to efficiently and effectively handle and manage the fabric materials you are using, you can simply take a large, durable plastic protective tablecloth or covering and carefully spread it out evenly on the surface of the table. The table can also be foldable, allowing you to work with the fabric. We spread out the plastic tablecloth and don't worry about getting anything dirty. When we start working with fabric, the first thing to do is to note that when the fabric is sold and cut, the edge is not always cut straight. First, we need to align the edge at a 90-degree angle so that we can start cutting the pieces. It is indeed easiest to do this if we have a rectangular table. As the table has a 90-degree angle, we lay out the edge, and the fabric is spread out on the table. Like this, and along the other edge of the table, we draw a line. We get a 90-degree angle to start working. Also, before starting work, it is important to take a look. First of all, if the fabric has a nap.
Then we need to ensure that all pieces are cut in the same direction. Here we have, as you can clearly observe in the video right now, at this moment, this part appears to be lighter, and this one is a bit darker. So, even though we have a small nap, it has a direction towards this side, meaning it is positioned like this. In order to cut the fabric for the chairs, it is important that the nap on the backrest faces down and on the seat faces forward. That is, so that we can smooth it down and forward. Here, the direction of the nap goes this way. This needs to be taken into account so that all parts are positioned in the same direction, ensuring the fabric shade on the furniture is uniform. We will have a separate video on the channel about different types of fabrics, how to work with them, and what needs to be considered. We will talk about this in more detail there. I would also like to mention that it is very important to always consider the fabric's stretch coefficient or its elasticity, in order to determine the width of the fabric. Calculate it so that there are stitches at the corners with enough allowance for the fabric to lay beautifully. It is important to consider how much it stretches, but this will also be covered in a separate video, discussing how to take this into account and how to do it. Now we will proceed to cutting and preparing the covers. After the cover is ready, we put it on. To put on the cover, it needs to be turned inside out onto such a part. It is important to pay attention to how we smooth out the seam. The seam should be smoothed out so that it does not tuck inside the wedge, but rather outside. Then the fabric will lay beautifully. That is, we take the cover, fold the seam like this, and start putting it on. As we put it on, we constantly ensure that the seams spread to the sides. We tuck in about 10-15 centimeters. Press it down with our hand, grab it from the bottom, turn it over, and do the same on this side. You can also make notches on the fabric at the seams, on the corners, to prevent it from wrinkling. We carefully and gently smooth the seam outward, ensuring that it spreads evenly and uniformly to the side, covering all areas. You can stand like this and literally take the seam with your fingers, ensuring that the seam stays outward and doesn't go inward. We added a little, now we turn it over. The first time it will be difficult to do this, especially when passing the widest part. You need to compress the foam. We still don't pull it all the way. We check the upper corners. It has moved back a little. We smooth it out immediately and push it forward. We tighten it and see how it lays. When the cover is made correctly, it fits quite tightly. Therefore, putting it on may not be very easy. On the other hand, if it is very easy to put on, then perhaps the allowances are too large, and it won't lay nicely. It will wrinkle. But we managed to make it all snug. And then the lower corners, we continue to carefully and gently tuck the seam inside as well. And we put on one shoe and then the other shoe as we carefully and deliberately put them on. We carefully adjust the fabric downwards and gently tighten it. The outcome of our efforts turned out to be very successful and satisfactory. Here is the result of what we have accomplished and achieved. We smooth out the corners. If it wrinkles somewhere, we run the fabric down like this. We check one side and the other thoroughly and meticulously. We always start upholstering from the corners, ensuring everything is perfect. We take the corner, smooth it out, pull it tight, and staple it. The second corner, we pull it tight and staple it. Then we carefully and precisely pull the fabric tight in the middle, ensuring it is evenly distributed. To ensure the tension is consistent and approximately equal across the entire surface, pull the material tight. This helps in minimizing the formation of waves, which can affect the overall appearance and functionality. Check the tension by feeling for uniform resistance and adjust as necessary to maintain evenness. It won't turn out like this the first time from the left, but with experience everything will be fine. The corners are pulled tight, a little tighter than the middle, which is normal. Stapled it, check the bottom. If you see any waves, then you need to either pull tight somewhere or remove the staples and adjust. After that, we hit the sides, then tighten the fabric, cut off the excess, and staple it around. We have an upholstered back. Now we are upholstering the middle expendable part. The cover is also ready, and the corners are stitched. We marked with an arrow where the front and back are, so that, as we mentioned, if the fabric has a color shade and nap, the nap should face forward and down. This is our seat. It should face forward and down. Firstly, we start with the seat. We carefully position the corners, approximately, and then we gently tuck one hand inside and securely. We also carefully tuck the seam inside and gently lower it down. We pull the leg back. The same goes for the second corner, as we did before. We stretched it tight. Did you take a thorough and detailed look at it? Carefully examine every aspect and detail. After that, we meticulously adjust the edges by feel to ensure that it is perfectly centered and aligned in the middle. After completing the initial step, then we carefully and gently turn it over to ensure even distribution. We smooth it out, and if we smooth it out, at first it seems like we have a little bit of fabric missing because it is not taut. To make it taut, we need to very slightly and carefully open it up so that it is properly and securely insured. We are missing a few centimeters like this. This is done to ensure the tension. We lift it up. The fabric has loosened, and we tuck in one corner, and we also smooth the second one inward. We tuck in the second corner. We pulled them tight. Now the corner has returned to its place. We do the second corner as well, and then, when we lower it, the fabric stretches as needed. This creates a rounding. That is, the fabric is taut. That's it. All four corners are in place. After that, we start with the seat, which is more protruding, as it is more convenient. We support it, and also start with the corners, pulling them tight again to check that they are in their place. And we carefully attach each corner with a sturdy staple, ensuring it is secure. After that, we proceed to nail the front part firmly in place. Then, we turn it around to the other side, making sure to secure the corners here as well with equal precision, and finally we nail the front part securely. Then we nail the fabric here at the seam. Here we have the joints, and here are the loops. and from the joints above and below we make a row of staples, hammering them in. Then we hammer in the sides, folding the fabric. But before we hammer in the side parts, we must not forget to insert the legs. I will do the front and back now, and then show you. Before hammering in the sides, let's not forget to put in the legs. The legs are simply attached with bolts. Be sure to place a washer and tighten the nut. The nut is not tightened tightly. It is only needed to prevent the bolt from coming loose. Exactly the same for the second one. And here it is very important. This leg is the outer one. When the chair unfolds, you open it with your hand. And this one should open by itself. In order for it to open by itself, it needs to be attached with a strap to the beam on the opposite side. We use an elastic strap because it stretches a bit, and to ensure it opens fully without tearing over time, it's better to use an elastic strap. You don't need to apply tension. It has a little elasticity. When it folds, the strap will provide a bit of tension. Therefore, it is better to use elastic, and here we should push through more. This is very important because if you don't put a strap on this middle leg, the chair will open, the leg won't open, someone will sit in the middle, and everything will break in half. So, in this way, essentially, our leg closed when we open the chair, it automatically and effortlessly tilts back, demonstrating its mechanism and functionality without any manual intervention. I'll even show it like this. So, our chair is positioned like this. The seat, when we open it, we open this with our hand. This part of the chair opens on hinges, and here our leg has opened. After that, after we have placed the legs, we stuff the side parts with fabric. During the work, we encountered significant changes. The client, who wanted 2 chairs, changed her mind and asked to make a small sofa out of the 2 chairs. A double love seat, where 2 chairs are placed into the middle side panel, they connect in the middle, resulting in a love seat with 2 separately opening parts. This can be done as we did it, from the base of one chair to the other chair, 0-1. We simply tighten them with bolts through the original holes where the side panels were attached, install the legs, and put new rollers at the back, as we planned. After that, the front board is made solid, reinforced, and attached with strong screws, supporting the new frame against bending. Plus, the front legs will also prevent it from breaking. Row 2. The back support board, which the backs rest on when they recline, is also made solid. Holes are drilled, dowels are installed, meaning everything is repeated that was done on the short boards, but instead of 2, 1 long board is made. The most difficult part is these middle fastenings, where the folding parts of the backrest and seat are attached. Previously, holes were prepared in the side panel, but now it was necessary to make the fastenings What is the difficulty? It's not enough to take the measures. They must match perfectly between the fastenings and the side panels. How to do this? For this you can work with templates. Just take a piece of cardboard, in this case, with a slight protrusion, because the hole itself, the front fastening, slightly protrudes beyond the frame. Therefore, we immediately make a cut on the cardboard so that the whole area extends forward beyond the frame. We take it to the base and attach it precisely at the corner. We nail the bottom part very carefully and precisely at the corner with a stapler. After that, we carefully screw the side panel through this hole, and in the cardboard opposite the hole in the side panel, we carefully make a hole. As a result, we get a hole in the base and a fastening hole at the exact distance. Plus, we know exactly how to attach the new fastener to the base. The fastener was made of metal, galvanized, so there is no need to paint. It's easier to take galvanized steel. It's already shiny and beautiful. The thickness is 2.5 millimeters. It can be 3 millimeters. Less than 2.5 is undesirable. What is done? For example, imagine that this is metal. Here was a metal plate. We also maintain a 90-degree angle in it. The extension is slightly a little forward. We lean it against the cardboard. We make a hole where the bolt will be attached, the side piece will be attached, and it will hold, not the side piece, but the middle bolt that will go through the new fastener. We carefully take the metal part, and we also carefully make a hole in it. In advance, here we have cardboard, a cardboard template with the full layout of holes as it should be. This is the hole for this fastener. We place the metal plate on top, align the holes, we can press it with a bolt, and immediately, as we pressed it, we immediately screw in 2 self-tapping screws. We screw in 2 self-tapping screws, then mark on the metal plate and drill the upper hole. Remove all this, take away the template, and reattach the plate according to the holes of the self-tapping screws. And that's it. We have this hole, the upper one, positioned at a perfect angle, at the perfectly required distance. And we place all this in the middle, secure it, and we get this pin for the half to open and close on it, which exactly matches the fasteners on the side panels. This way, using this template, we make one fastener, and we do the same for the rear fastener. They are not identical, as they are positioned at different angles and different distances from the hole in the frame to this guiding pin. Thus, with the help of such templates, we did it quite quickly. Here's how it looks. We also took an 8mm bolt, cut it, inserted it, cut the nut, and tightened the nut from both sides. And this is our fastener. Here we have the backrest. On one side there is a fastener with a hole, and on the other side with a pin. Where we have, here is the pin, where the pin goes into the side panel. Where we have the fastener, which is a small metal or plastic device with a hole in it, it goes into this pin, which is a cylindrical rod. That's it. This is how everything is securely fastened and properly positioned in place, ensuring stability and alignment. We made one very compact and cozy sofa from 2 pieces, and in conclusion, we proceed to the assembly. Before assembling, we again check, for example, that the 8mm pins should fit into these fasteners. Again, after we have screwed it in, it goes right along the edge of the frame. We take an 8mm bolt and check if it will go in easily. It goes in, slightly tight, that's normal. That is, we check how easily it goes in. The same goes for the folding parts. We check everywhere how the fasteners will fit, because during assembly, if something gets stuck, it will be very inconvenient. So, first we take the side panels and carefully, with precision, temporarily attach them, and securely. With bolts, Don't forget to place the washer. It is preferable to use a larger washer with the maximum outer diameter. We tighten it lightly, but do not fully tighten. That's it, we tighten the nuts just a little bit. Now we lower it. The side panels should move as freely as possible, so that we can insert the folding parts and then tighten them. So now let's begin. First, we carefully install the backs. We insert the seating area securely. The backrest, we lift it up and simply tighten the rear nut by hand until the end. That's it, the backrest will no longer fall out. At this time, we are opting not to tighten the front section. This decision is made to maintain the current state and ensure the structure's stability. The second one should be handled in the same careful way as the first one. First, gently insert it into the side panel to avoid any potential scratching or damage. Then, carefully insert the middle part. And we tighten the nut as much as possible by hand. That's it. The backrest is in place. Now we attach the rear board. Forward, upward. Here we have the dowels and one screw each. We mark the dowels and insert them into one side panel. It opens very well. Everything has been assembled tightly, the backs are in place, and the back panel is secured. Now in this step, we are going to carefully install the front folding part of the assembly. We loosen the front nuts as much as we possibly can, and very slightly loosen the rear ones. Just a bit. We need to fully and completely open the side panels to the sides from the front. Again, we first insert it into the side panel, the seating area, then carefully, so as not to tear the fabric, we press and insert it into the middle. That's it. We fill it in completely. Next, we carefully take the second folding part, ensuring it is aligned properly, and then we insert it in exactly the same way as before, making sure everything fits perfectly. And here we need to carefully and gently pull the side panel as much as possible. Oh, it finally settled slowly and securely into place. That's it. We can install it in place. Just tighten all 4 bolts, lift it up and see what we've got. So, we started with 2 simple folding chairs, and through some creative thinking and design, we ended up transforming them into this innovative double chair, which can also function as a separate little sofa. It's quite fascinating to see how it unfolds and operates. Here's what we talked about. The middle leg opens with this tension strap, while the outer leg opens by hand. And the second one, remember to open the middle legs by hand, while the middle leg opens with the strap. The foam is brand new, everything fits tightly. This is the little sofa we ended up with.